Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, the masks stay on. Also, the V team takes a look at an historic inauguration. And is Congressman Mo Brooks under investigation?
He's sitting here at this table.
Guilty feet have got no rhythm. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by research guru extraordinaire Susan Britt and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hey guys.
All right. Well, it was an historic week. President Joe Biden was sworn in, so was Vice President Kamala Harris, the first female vice president, also first vice president of Black and South Asian heritage. Josh, I think that most Americans, not all, but most Americans, were very moved by the ceremonies, the pomp and circumstance, and the return to normalcy that we saw on January 20th.
Yeah, it's like you've been carrying a weight for a long time, you know, and you just was able to kind of set the weight down for a little while. And it was a nice exhale, a nice collective exhale for the country to kind of get normalcy back into government. And, you know, no matter what you thought of Trump, I mean, at the very least, I think we can all agree that he was not normal, however you want to assign not normal. But it was not a normal presidency by any stretch of the imagination. And it was just, you know, at a time, especially in the news business, it was so overwhelming, you know. Yeah. Just every day there was something else, you know, and so it would be nice for us to get this normalcy back in and maybe not hear from Joe Biden for 6 weeks or so. Would be pretty awesome, I'd say.
Susan, I know you and Charlie and Beth and a number of women were on instant message during that time. And you were particularly moved by Kamala Harris.
I was. She's a lady of grace and very professional. She moved into the position of, and I'm not going to cry again, Vice President of the United States for women across America. This is a huge step. There are so many children now, like Andy Lou, Josh, that will never know a time when a woman wasn't able to rise to that level of power.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's a very, very important step, and it was nice to see. I mean, it was just, you know, I think the one thing we've learned after the last 4 years is the nonsense that we used to hear about a woman being too emotional to go to such a high office was just complete hogwash, because you couldn't have gotten any more emotional than the last 4. But it's, you know, we should have gotten here long before now. Well, first of all, we should have gotten here 4 years ago, but we should have gotten here long before this. There have been many qualified women, much more qualified than the men who've held that office. And, you know, looking at what some of the men have done to that office, I think we would have been a whole hell of a lot better off to have them in there.
One of the things that was struck by is on January 20th, before the inauguration ceremony, Senate Leader Mitch McConnell and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, both Democrats, attended Mass with Joe Biden. You know, I don't know how other people felt, but I felt really good about seeing a devout president actually starting his day in church, even with the opposition, members of the opposition party, Susan.
Yeah, it felt really good. I mean, there comes a time to bring out your swords for the Democrats or the Republicans, And there comes a time, like on Inauguration Day, and well, most of the time, unless they're on the floor, to lay those swords down, and let's all just act like civilized humans and try to work together to better the country.
You know, one of the more moving parts, Joe. I mean, Josh. I have Joe Biden on the brain right now. Is that at the laying of the wreath of the unknown soldier, President Joe Biden was joined by President Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. And they spoke candidly about their willingness, both Democrat and Republican, to help this new administration succeed.
Yeah, you know, it's nice to see, you know, the statesmanship, I guess you'd say, to kind of return a little bit here, and it not be this ridiculous reality show of you know, evil versus whatever, you know, and so it was nice to see that. You know, I was much more impressed with later in the day when Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell became Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. But listen, you know, and I'll say this: it's nice. It's a nice picture. It's a nice thing to say. I appreciate Joe Biden and what he wants to accomplish and what he believes he can accomplish in unifying the country. But he's got a big hurdle in Mitch McConnell and the Republicans that spent, you know, the 8 years of the Obama administration blocking everything that they did. And basically being speed bumps to any sort of progress. I think Joe Biden has an opportunity at this point to move forward with a mandate that the country has given him, and I hope that he pushes forward as fast as he can go.
Well, not everyone, Susan, was happy on Inauguration Day. I mean, we live in a democratic republic in which there can only be one winner. We believe that Joe Biden was that winner. There has been no evidence to the contrary of these false allegations of voter fraud and widespread corruption. But people are going to believe that, and there is nothing you can do to change their minds. I mean, this is just the part. But I think we would all be remiss, and the government especially, in dismissing the fact that President Trump did secure 74 million votes, and those people have issues and concerns. Yes, elections have consequences, but I'm afraid right now the Democrats and the Republicans have a different idea of what unity means.
Yeah, that's concerning to me because they're so divided, and the country's so divided right now on this issue that it's going to take a long time to repair that damage, to repair that tear in our country. It's going to take a lot of brave people doing a lot of very hard things to get that back together.
Well, Senator Tommy, go ahead, Josh.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, you know, 74 million people believe that because the president and a bunch of Republicans told them that the election was fraudulent and stolen, and that's the reason why it led to the insurrection. And so, you know, I understand that they're upset. Believe me, I know the feeling well from 4 years ago. All right, and you know, I'm still waiting on a Republican to reach out to me and unify things. But you know, that's this is where we are. You know, this is the thing that the majority of the country wanted, and you know, this is what we've got.
That's the way it works. You got winners and losers. Winners take office, losers go on vacation. All right, you're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to The Feed, the voice of Alabama politics. You know, Josh, you brought up the insurrection, and that is a dark day in our country's history that will not and should not ever be forgotten. Several of the rioters were from Alabama, one with weapons and Molotov cocktails. Another one is originally from Montgomery. William Watson, 23 years old. He entered with mace and a knife. And when he said that when he got captured, or when the investigators talked to him, he said that he was there that day because they were fraudulently certifying the elections. And he blamed right-wing commentators like Alex Jones and the Conspiracy Bunch, saying that he was there to support patriots, to support President Trump, and support freedom. The Eagle Forum this week of Alabama came out and did more saying that, oh, it was Antifa and all this stuff. Josh, we've got these people in their own words. Susan, we got these people in their own words saying they were there to support President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, there are also people that believe that, there were Hollywood elite sucking the blood of children, and that's what President Trump was there to stop. And, I don't know what you say to that. I don't know what you say to that kind of crazy, that sort of dedication to a fraudulent cause that they have. Will Watson was born in Montgomery to affluent parents who live, in a nice affluent neighborhood just outside of Montgomery. I don't. This is the sort of thing that they've isolated themselves into this bubble of conservative news sources that have fed them lie after lie after lie, and all of it. I don't know at what point. What more needs to be proven wrong for you to get out of that? I don't know what needs to happen.
And the important point of what you just said was fed into the bubble. Yes, people do tend to get in their own bubbles, their own cliques, but then they were fed over and over all of this stuff, the lies about the election, and even though they didn't have proof to back it up, but Trump and the news organizations take responsibility as well for continuing to feed and feed and feed until these people became friends.
Well, I mean, to me, these people have been radicalized just like Islamist fundamentalists, just like terrorists around the world. They've become radicalized by the idea of a charismatic leader that takes them to a promised land of some sort. And I'm very disappointed that the Eagle Forum is still pushing this information. I know there's some good folks over there, but this is just outrageous. We need to stop it. Let's move on to something that is of interest and is important. We are hearing, and we have some news reporting on it, but not a lot, that there are investigations into members of Congress who may have participated in some way or another, the insurrection that occurred on January 6th. And Josh, you and I both are hearing that Mo Brooks, Congressman Mo Brooks from Huntsville, is one of those representatives that is under intense scrutiny for his role at the rally and subsequent things that may come to light.
Yeah, they've looked at a lot of these Republican Congress people that for a variety of different things, leading tours, giving out maps. Obviously, if you've seen some of the videos, and I've watched quite a few of the videos from inside the Capitol during that that riot or insurrection. The people are talking there back and forth, and you can tell pretty quickly that they've got information. They know where this was planned out. They knew where they were going. They knew where they were supposed to be, and some of them didn't. Some of them were just there because they were following the crowd. But a lot of the leaders of these groups, they knew exactly where they were going, and they were trying to find people and trying to find offices that they'd been given maps to. And some of the places that they went really quickly are not easy to find in that building, without a map or without some prior knowledge of that. And so they're pretty certain that some people there participated in this and were knowingly or unknowingly gave out information that they shouldn't have been giving out.
Well, we know for certain that Mo Brooks helped rile up the crowd and pointed them in the direction of the Capitol. I don't know what responsibility he owes for that. But I can assure you, when Abby Hoffman and the Chicago 7, some of those guys did what they did, they were tried and convicted. And I'm not sure they did what Mo Brooks did, and they certainly didn't raid the Capitol. But we'll move on from that. Former state lawmaker Ed Henry, who pled guilty to Medicare fraud in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, somewhere in that range. He was given a pardon, Susan, by President Donald Trump at the request of Tommy Tuberville. We hear others, but Ed Henry, convicted felon, was pardoned.
How appropriate.
Yeah.
How appropriate.
It's a shame. Ed Henry is not a guy who was wrongly convicted, who is, had some bad evidence or bad representation or anything like that. He pleaded guilty to a crime that he committed, and then he supported the right guy for president, and so he got a pardon out of it. So you can cheer that if you want to because you're a Republican and y'all happen to believe the same thing. But the guy broke the law, admitted to breaking the law, and that's why he served a 2-year probation period and had to make some restitution. It wasn't an accident that this happened.
He stole taxpayer money. He stole taxpayer money for his own benefit out of a fund for the elderly to have health care. Seriously.
I mean, we have seen time and again in the State House lawmakers stand up and go on about Medicaid and Medicare fraud, that if a poor woman committed $100 worth of fraud on her Medicare or Medicaid, they would want her in prison. But Ed Henry, who conspired to take tons of money out of Medicare, they just, we're so glad President Trump pardoned a criminal.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment to the system. I mean, it happens with both parties, and I know that full well, and I've never liked any one of them. But this is a purely political pardon for Ed Henry. It wasn't because he was wrongly convicted of something.
No, and we can be thankful that Mike Hubbard's charges were state charges and not federal. Otherwise, he'd be walking.
He'd be out too. All right, we have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Your career isn't a job, it's a journey. Your next job could lead to bigger things, and you're in charge of how fast and how far you want to go. At alabamaworks.com, you can connect with employers and start working right now. Then chart your path forward with training and career planning tools. That next paycheck is great, but it's only the beginning. Start a great success story at alabamaworks.com.
A lot can change in 5 years, except those smile lines you treated with Bellafill. Because that's about how long Bellafill will keep them smooth and filled. 5 years. Now you can always look your best without all those injections, appointments, and costs. Bellafill is the only dermal filler that stimulates and maintains collagen growth long term. Now time is on your side.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Will Rogers once said that he did not belong to any organized political party. He was a Democrat. And Josh, there is a new lawsuit
Again.
where the Democrats are suing each other over who should be in charge. It's just outrageous.
Yeah, it's a new lawsuit and an old fight, and it really kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. I think that a lot of the current leadership of the Democratic Party in the state felt like this was somewhat behind them. They felt like they had made some overtures to the Joe Reed camp, and they felt like things were progressing forward. I mean, I know a couple of guys personally that had talked, and they felt like they were making some progress towards kind of unifying the party, and so, Reed, the actual plaintiffs in this are Janet May and Mark Kennedy, and who are longtime people there and longtime allies of Joe Reed, and so they've sued again over the bylaws that were put in place that they claim diminish, the influence of black voters in the party, which it doesn't. They actually introduced more black voters in this. But it's it's the same thing, same lawsuit that was kicked out in state court. Now they're trying it in federal court, and I think the result's going to be the same. Although it'd be interesting to see what the new leader of the DNC says, because previously with Tom Perez in charge, the new party for the Alabama Democratic Party had the new leadership had support of Tom Perez in the national parties, and I assume that's still going to be the case with Jamie Harrison coming in.
Well, Susan, it is just a shame when there is an opportunity, not for the Democratic Party to necessarily take over the state, but to make some progress.
Yes, to move forward instead of back in history where nothing got done, where nothing was organized.
The only
let's move forward here.
The only people who are happy about this is the Joe Reed group and the Republican Party of Alabama.
Yeah.
It is a shame. It really is. I mean, because they did have a little bit of wind behind them at this point. They've been able to generate some money and move it forward. And now you're looking at a situation where you're going to go to federal court and you're probably going to be in front of a judge appointed by Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all your donations start to dry up because they don't know what the outcome of this decision is going to be. So now it's going to pause their donations. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
I mean, this is total and absolute selfishness on the part of Kennedy and May and Joe Reed. They just don't know how to step aside and let the next generation lead, and they should. Mm-hmm. Governor Ivey this week extended the mask ordinance, as she should, and encouraging people to stay at a distance and follow the guidelines. Susan, our hospitals, the ICU beds last week, there was only 39 beds left statewide.
Out of 1,600.
Wow.
Out of 1,600.
Yeah.
One of the most startling... go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, it's just, we continue down the same path, and man, we better hope we get this vaccine ramped up in a hurry, because we're going to have a ton more deaths if we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the problem is, I know that Dr. Harris said at the same press conference that one of the problems was we didn't have enough vaccine. Mm-hmm. But we've only used maybe 40% of the vaccine. So that means 60% of the vaccine is sitting on the shelf. Susan, we know people that vaccinate people for a living.
Yeah.
Millions.
Thousands of them a day.
And we can't get it done here in Alabama. And yes, it's improving. And yes, there are reasons. But I hear more excuses than good reasons.
Yeah.
And it's because you don't have somebody kicking butt and telling folks, look, this is the plan.
This is the way we're going to move it from here to here. Once it gets there, this is the way it's going to be handled. This is the way it's going to be administered. Da-da-da-da-da. There is no master plan here.
We don't need a doctor. We need a general.
Well, I'll tell you this. If there was a kickback program where somebody got paid for administering doses of this thing, we'd be out of them by now.
Yeah. Well, it's just sad that we've only used some 40% and people are dying.
Yeah, and the excuses we're getting back out of, ADHP is that, they're just not sending us enough. No, you're not getting them in the arms of people, the ones you already have.
And there's other problems with reporting and that type of thing that could easily be fixed, but they're just not getting it done. We do have an idea for opening session, Josh. There's an idea that's not necessarily a plan, Susan, and that is session starts on February 2nd. They're going to basically quarantine themselves and let the public get in some rooms and watch it on TV.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you have to have an appointment if you're a lobbyist or somebody in public. You have to make an appointment with the legislator to see them. I think in the Senate you can see them in their office, but in the House you have to go into a special room to see them, if they'll see you at all. Now, I haven't heard anything about the press in here. It's not being generally mentioned, but we are a part of the process. So they need to figure out exactly how we're going to fit into this, or they'll be violating the Constitution.
Well, they're letting people in the door, Josh. It's just you can't get to the lawmakers, basically.
Well,
Which is the way they like
it's
it.
nice of them to not think of us, and also nice of them to quarantine themselves. But I'll say this: one thing I do kind of like about this is that you have to make an appointment if you're a lobbyist to see any lawmaker, because somebody's got to write that down, and that's all public record.
Well, the only reason I like for lobbyists to meet with some of the lawmakers is because some of our lawmakers are so clueless that they need lobbyists to tell them what's really
That's
going
true.
on. You know.
Yeah, that's true. I've said a lot of times, people complain about the lobbyists, but at this point in time, I'm not sure that I wouldn't rather have the lobbyists in charge.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, I've sitting in committee meetings when I've watched a lawmaker get up and introduce a bill he sponsored, and he was talking about the wrong bill.
Yeah. Yeah,
He didn't get the talking points.
We've all watched them walk to the back of the room and talk to the lobbyists about questions that they've been asked about the bill that they're introducing. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a crazy show, man. It's a crazy show.
And in all fairness, they don't have the type of staff that they need to do this. So in that sense, the
Let's
lobbyists.
start by reading the bills.
Yeah.
You were really asking for a lot.
I read the bills.
Yeah.
Josh
Right.
reads the bills.
Well,
They vote on them. They might take at least a pass at the
but
summary.
you want them to read something and then understand it. I mean,
Oh, okay. I didn't say understand it.
well,
Yeah.
there you go.
If we put more
All right.
pictures in there, I think we'd be better off.
More pictures. Maybe a coloring book, right? All right. We're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.